Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Strictly Broken Brews. I'm your host Christian Jahrbacher, and today we're gonna talk about how we're all gonna go to jail. So we're gonna talk about Ilya, and I haven't actually gotten any stats update ever since we started this, but I got promised that we'll get it soon, and since all the VGPs are over by now, we'll have some better data to talk about probably next week. But since I don't have that available yet, I just picked one of the remaining decks that still had a high representation, which is Ilya. And I guess what also influenced my decision was that we saw a topping list from England. So I just took this chance to, well, not only topping list that actually won in England. So I also took this chance to include that into this whole thing, I guess. Yeah. So we're gonna start with that list. That makes sense. How this is gonna look is I'm probably gonna talk about the topping list from UK first, which is Twyform. Then I'm gonna talk a bit about Kaleidoscope with the topping list build, and then my own build, which show two different approaches. And then I'll briefly talk over some other builds that I think aren't as strong as Kaleidoscope and Twyform, but that you might want to play because you want to have fun or because you like the characters or whatever. Yeah. Let's start with Twyform, with the winning list from UK. Something that you need to know about Twyform is basically that you have you have a lot of slots that are basically fixed because Twyform needs needs the two sticks at 0, and it obviously needs the Twyform itself. So a lot of your 0 slots are actually already fixed, and this is one of the reasons why I personally, for example, didn't think about including the new Sapphire Ilya marker beater package, because I thought there just wasn't enough space. Essentially, what he did is just he cut down on the oversizes, so he's just playing 3 runners. And cut down on basically most of the other utility cards to fit this engine in. Basically to allow him to have a better level 1 game than the deck would normally have, because normally the deck would just have 4 of the Climax combo, 4 of the Katsuki, that's a level 1 game, so your level 1 is actually pretty weak. Whereas this kind of solves that, because you get access to 107k beaters that are somewhat recurable if you draw extra copies of this, because the assist that you marker under the 10 Ilya also changes into it. So you also sometimes have access to a level 1 and level 0, but that's kind of rare. Yeah. Then he's playing Salvage Brainstorms. The reason why he's playing Salvage Brainstorms instead of the Search Brainstorm is because he's also playing, basically as his only real utility card, I guess, the double Ditch Wander, which Ditch Wands to both the Salvage Brainstorm and the level 1 combo. This might also be why he's only playing 3 of the level 1 combo. But not only that, but it's not only that it's Ditch Bondable, you actually can only resolve 1 per turn, because the cost for the Climax combo is to put the Climax from the Climax zone in the waiting room, which has its advantages and disadvantages, because you can just you can play the Climax before refresh and then just put it back in the bin. But due to the way the Climax combo works, it's actually a bit more awkward, because basically when you put the Climax away, you blind stock 1 and then you give another character on reverse salvage. This has multiple implications. One of these is that if you do the Climax combo before refresh, if you want to do the thing where you just put the Climax back inside the deck, it can happen that you actually just don't have a reverse target, because you're blind stocking 1 and then you trigger and then there's no deck left to solve it. There's no deck left, so you refresh and then you don't have anything to salvage from waiting room. And that's also something like the build struggles with if you don't run the speeder package, because then you're just playing 5k base characters, or like 6k, or like 5-5, or maybe 6k if you play like the stick that power pumps 1k. With the split 2k1, then you're like 8k or something, and you need to reverse, so that's also kind of awkward. Whereas with the Peter Ilya, you're like 9-9-5, which is a lot more reasonable to reverse cards with. Yeah. Level 2 is very sparse with just an anti-change counter and a refresh. I don't like this refresh personally because I don't think the effect is very impactful. It's just like when you use the refresh, you have 5 or less cards, you can play this, shuffle your waiting room to your deck, blah blah blah. And the effect it gives you is it gives a character 3k until the end of the opponent's turn, which I think is not that impactful personally, and it's a bit harder to loop or take advantage of it in this deck. But I mean, it's still a fine card, and it like helps with if you try to go for more of a field-based approach. That it helps with protecting your field basically because it just gives a power pump. Personally, I would have probably run something like an anti-change bomb in this slot, just to like help deal with Vivid or ReZero, which I think is more relevant than sometimes refreshing. But like this is obviously a meta choice. If you don't see any Vivid or any ReZero or whatever, then it's probably unnecessary. Probably forgot like some other snowballing early play. Basically, if you don't have any snowballing early plays that absolutely need to be answered with, you probably don't need the anti-change bomb. Especially because like, well, this deck has a bit more selection because it has the Climax combo and the Brainstorm, but usually Ilya doesn't have that great selection to actually like reliably get one-offs. Yeah, and then level 3 is just very simple. With the Miyu, early play that heals, Triform that heals, and the Miyu assist that basically says anti-event and like makes Triform sizable. Not huge, but sizable. Yeah. I mean, issues with the deck are often gonna be like getting the right card, because you need like Triform needs like the 2 sticks to actually do anything. Well, actually, you only need to global on the field and like the other in the waiting room. But this essentially means that you need a lot of pieces, and Triform is not, or like Ilya in general is not that great at assembling many pieces unless you play like for example, the Kuro 2k1 combo from set 3. But that comes with its own host of issues, which is that it's on reverse and it's a 2k1. Very awkward and not exactly good. Yeah, so you have to assemble all these pieces, and then you still have to reverse. The Miyu actually helps this obviously a lot because it blanks money counter, it blanks tap counter, it blanks event power counters, which is relevant against rewrite. Sadly, it does not blank any character counter, so most character counters that are sec counters are still active, which is why you usually just absolutely want to get at least 2 Triforms out. I mean, not just because 2 Triforms is always better than 1, but to get 2 Triforms so that one actually resolves if the opponent sec counters the other one with his anti-change sec counter or whatever. Yeah, what Triform allows you to do, in addition to like a fairly powerful finish, which is like burn 2, burn 5 on reverse in whatever order you want, is it allows you to go for more of a heal-based strategy. I'm not sure if I want to say heal-based, but basically since you're healing with your early plays and then healing again at level 3, this is like the scenarios in which early play heals are good, I think, is where you can play heals over multiple turns and like accumulate healing, and you're not really just pushing the heal from that you'd normally use at level 3 to level 2, but you're actually like using that heal that you got at level 2 to like stack more heals than you would if you just played like the cards at level 3. So you actually you're spreading your heals efficiently out over a time frame. And due to that, get more of a survivability and stuff. Bad explanation. But yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of it. Strengths of the deck, weaknesses. Well, I guess I somewhat covered it. Yeah. If I missed something, just tell me in the comments, whatever. Or if you still have questions about this deck. Then we gotta go to a Kaleidoscope deck, and this is a blue-green Kaleidoscope deck, which implies he's playing the split 2k1 combo instead of 8 pants, which is, I think, the traditional version of the deck. 8 pants has been the deck for so long that I'm not sure if people actually switch to the green one or not. I think I see both versions, but we'll just talk about this one first and the other one later, and talk about the differences. The level 0 lineup here is very how do I call it? Spread around. You have 9 oversized slots basically. You have 4 runners, 2 chases, and 3 level 1 1Ks. So you definitely are gonna plus to field at level 0. There's no doubt about that. And you just have 4 brainstorms and 3 of the stick that allows you to basically the marker beater package, which is something you'll see, I think, a lot in forthcoming Illyia builds. Oh, on the marker stick, going back to Twyform, sorry. I'm just reminded of something. One issue this deck has is obviously, or not obviously, is that you actually just have no stock outs. And you have a blind stock combo. And the issue is not only that you can't pay out climax as a trigger on your first attack, you actually just can't pay out climax as a trigger on your second attack either, because your only stock guard is just a brainstorm. And at level 2 you get access to the early play heal, but it's still not a lot of efficient stock guards at all, which is an issue this deck runs into a lot. My version of the deck, or rather my original version of the deck before, I haven't tried the beta package yet, but I think that's I think that's a reasonable way to go, because the beta package is obviously very powerful. I just personally didn't think I'd find the room for it. Essentially what he did is he just cut down on level 2s, he cut a bit of level 3s. Basically he cut down what I assume he thinks is unnecessary fat to the game plan, and just strengthened the level 1 board for it, which is a fair thing to do. But what he also does with that is that he loses stock guards. For example, I play the 2-1 assisted bounce to the healer. Yeah, which helps. If you get the 2-1, then you can grab the heal, and then you can pay 3 stock. Yeah, that's something that is relevant for this deck, and also kind of relevant for Illyia builds in general, that stock guards are at a premium somewhat. Yeah, going back to this, and he's playing 2 copies of the 9 beaters, 4 brainstorms, 3 of the market thing, and 2 of the Kuro. Suicide, when you reverse something, you can pay 1 ditch 1 to salvage. This is, I'm not sure why this card is in here, because it's not playing the Kuro that has this as an early play condition. I don't think bombs on their own are very good, and I don't think the disability is a good enough secondary ability that I'd play this as a bomb, because your salvage targets in the time frame where this reverses something will usually just be whatever you ditched and maybe some other cards. It's not any of these actually mill 3 or something on play, so your salvage target is actually just really limited, and in the late game this kind of does nothing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just the best bomb option he found available, and you wanted to play a bomb. But then at the bottom deck, only a bomb might just be better. I'm not sure what this is doing, but the rest is very focused around beaters at level 0. I think there's diminishing returns after the 7th or Well, it obviously diminishing returns start after like the fourth or fifth, but I think it starts getting really like um less relevant once you add the seventh copy of a beater or something. It goes from like a 10% gain to like 8% gain to like a 5% gain that you actually open the card, open a beater basically. For like if you run, it goes for the from like 60 to 72 from 4 to 5, and then from 72 to 80 from like 5 to 6, and then it just starts getting like 85, 87. Then it just you don't gain a lot out of it anymore. Yeah, and just brainstorm and the market thing. And the level 1 lineup is basically the same as the other guy, except he's not playing any counters. And is there a difference except the counters? No, there's not. Oh, and he's also just playing 3 of the marker Ilya, which is kind of reflected by only running 3 of the Sapphire. That helps like the Ilya mark that you need under the Ilya as a marker for it to actually be a beater. But he's actually playing the anti-change bump, and he's even playing 3 copies, which seems very excessive. But like this deck, same as the other Ilya decks, doesn't hand fix that particularly well. So if he runs 3, he basically says he always wants to have it. Maybe this matter has a lot of vivid, maybe, or something else that he really wants to deal with. And then the Kaleidoscope deck. For those who don't know, you basically need to have a lot of climaxes in your hand, a lot of the same climax in your hand. You need both Kaleidoscope Ilya and Kaleidoscope Mio in field. And then each Ilya triggers if you have a Mio in field, you can discard a Pants, the class card saber, while you have a Pants in the climax zone. Then mill the top card of your deck, and if it's level 1 or lower, your entire front row gets burn 1 on attack. And this is obviously stackable, so if you have 3 Ilyas out and you discard 3 Pants, then each character will burn 3 on attack. Burn 1, 1, 1 on attack. Which is obviously like, this was like the most powerful finish in the game for ever since it came out, basically. Which is probably also why Bushiroad was very hesitant to like give Ilya actually good cards always, or like cards that specifically. I don't want to say they didn't give us cards that specifically work well with this deck, because they gave us like the draw drop in the last booster, and Minikatsuki is just generally good. But especially in Dai, you see that they didn't want to give us a good advantage combo. Because I think they were just afraid of breaking like this. But then this printed Kemono Friends, so I'm not sure what it is all about. Because Kemono Friends just shuts this deck down hard because it's basically a one-trick pony. This build less so than the one I'll talk about after, which is very all-in on the combo, but still it's basically dead in the water to anti-burn. Yeah, level 3 is just 2 advanced summons, a 3rd advanced summon that's also a heal. Like this is a 1-stock advanced summon that hand fixes, which is just ideal for this deck basically. Because what this deck wants to do is just keep up a damage parity, and then just combo the opponent dead from 3-0 or something. So like a 1-cost 2 Soul Beater that also fixes your hand is just ideal for what this deck wants to do. And he's playing 3 Ilya, 3 Mio. I think you always want to play 4 Ilya, because Ilya is the part that you need multiples of, because if you're only doing single combo, then what are you playing this deck for? Since single combo is just 3 pings, and most other decks can manage 3 pings without like crippling their entire deck to like accommodate this combo. Because what this combo also does is basically it wants you to run a high number of 0s and 1s, so that you're more likely to naturally manage the top check. Level 1 or lower, if you don't get like the Ilya top check 6 or don't have the stock for it. General like setup would be something like 2 Ilya, 1 Mio, and then the top check 6 Ilya, which also like helps set up its top check 6 and put 3 on top. And since the Mio has on climax play of the saber, you can also draw 1. Like all these effects trigger on climax play. You can like stack the 6 cards that you use. Like you can put the 3 cards that you stack with Ilya in a way that you can put the class card saber that you revealed on the top, draw it with Mio, and then like mill the 2 1s and ditch your 2 Pants. Yeah, very straightforward. Not very straightforward, but like very linear deck that's basically just focused around the combo. And yeah, pretty dead to anti-burn. But what the green comp, the split token one allows you to do, is it allows you to play like climaxes without actually losing cards. And the more important part, I guess, is that it helps with the stock crunch, because like this deck usually doesn't like have the hand size issue, even though it actually doesn't plus that much, but because all of its level 3s cantrip and like feed you more hand, uh, you're just more likely to run into an issue of I don't have enough stock to combo off versus I don't have enough like my cards in hand to combo off. So the split token one and also blind stocks one obviously helps that. The drawback, on the other hand, is that if you trigger like the other, if you would have played like the other pants, you could have just triggered it and like put the other class card saber in your hand, which can be very powerful. Yeah, obviously, because you need multiples of the class card saber in hand, at least 3 usually. Like you want to have 3, at least 2, but you want to have 3. Yeah. Then I'll talk a bit about the blue version of this deck, which goes about it in a bit different way because you're not playing like the green split token one combo. I'm playing the blue brainstorms for the first deck instead of the green ones. I'm not sure why like the blue green kaleidoscope deck played the green ones. Maybe it's just for color. It's actually probably just for color, because the blue one is the green one is an assist 500 in your turn, and the blue one is a 500 global on your opponent's turn. So this helps more. This helps the wall strategies more. Yeah, I'm also playing the 1-0 Peter package, but I'm focused a lot more around it. Level 0 lineup is kind of similar to the other decks. I'm playing for oversizing plussing slots. I'm playing 2 draw drops. I think those are replaceable with whatever you yourself want them to be, like maybe more mill 3s that sort of pay 1 clock 1 draw 1 to enable easier tri-fields. And the mill 3 also obviously helps set up the Sophia Ilya beater marker change thing. But I like having the draw drop because it helps to set up. It's additional draws at level 3 basically for your climax, and helps. It's a free hand fix, and if you play climax, it's a free double hand fix, which is always nice. Yeah, level 0 is fairly, is I guess similar, but like I think the thing where this deck stands out from the others is that it actually plays the 1/1 Miu, which is a card from the last set that's basically global 500, and at the beginning of the opponent's attack step, you can assign 1k. So you basically have a free 1k counter every turn. This has been a very powerful effect. It has been tempered with before the third set came out, but in that deck, it felt like you didn't get enough of a payoff for it to be worth one stock investment. Whereas in this deck with the 7k beater, I think it actually like makes sense to go for a field-based level 1 approach, and try to like gain or win the damage race via that, instead of like just trying to slam a climax every turn and hoping it sticks. Though you kind of still do that in this deck since you're playing 8 pants. Yeah, so this deck is like a more field-based approach. This Miu bonds to the 3/2 top check 6. Yeah, and the level 3 lineup is a bit more, well, not really more streamlined. It's basically the same as the other Kaleidoscope deck, except I'm running the 4 Ilya because I think Ilya is the most important card in your deck, kind of, since you need at least 2 of these. So I want to run 4. I've been at 2 Mius for a while. Then I just went back up to 3 because it just allows you to be greedier. This deck, like all Ilya decks, actually need experience. They need experience 3 at level 1. They only actually really need experience 2 for the Katsuki, but the counter is a 1k counter unless you have experience 3, in which case it becomes a 2k counter. So you really want experience 3. which usually is not an issue because Ilya, like, as you can see, usually runs like 11. Not okay. This deck only runs 9, but like Ilya usually runs around 10 level 3, so it's not that big of a deal. But like what running 3 Mew basically allows you to is to just not think too much about it when you level 1. Whereas if you run 2 Mews, then you actually just have to grab the last copy of Mew ASAP and just never let it go again. Yeah. Very all-in combo deck. Like as much as the combo deck is like Wise has, I guess, is what Kaleidoscope is. It then just like burns out the opponent. Very high roller deck. Yeah. Like why I think Kaleidoscope and Triform are the best Ilya decks to like think about taking to tournament is just because of the strength of their finishers. Like this is basically what triple Bochusa combo does, except you actually get to attack for better numbers. Yes, better numbers because you can have like one of this in the front, one of this in the back, and one of this in the back, and then just field 2 random cards in the front. Which basically allows you to attack for 1-1-2, 1-1-2, 1-1-3 instead of just 1-1-3, 1-1-3, 1-1-3, which is obviously a lot better as far as damage numbers go. Yeah, you can also cut something and make room for the 3-2 Mew that's like anti-event. The assist, because that also cantrips and is like generally useful for the deck. Because it shuts down tap counters. If you think tap counters are a real threat in your meta, like tap counters that are event counters rather, because like it doesn't shut down, for example, the rezero or the rewrite tap counter. But if you have event tap counters in your meta, then you obviously want to play the 3-2 Mew in Kaleidoscope. Because tap counters are really good against on-attack burns. Who knew? Is there something else? Did I miss something? I probably missed something. Whatever. Yeah, why these decks are strong are because of their good finishes, and I think that the main issue that the other Ilya decks have is just that they can't end the game very well. Ilya doesn't really have a splashable finisher. It has the Gilgamesh, but that's very sketchy and only works in certain decks, I feel like. And otherwise, it just doesn't have any splashable finisher that's not tied to a climax combo, so you usually have to choose level 3 combo for your finisher. And if you have like access to 2 very strong finishing combos, I don't really see a reason to pick another weaker finishing combo as your like end game. But like to round this out a bit, I didn't build these decks on the strictly broken Westshot CCG. I just took those from like my Westshot decks, and I'll just like link those two. Is something like what the Triform decks looked like before Dry was that they weren't blue-green, but they were rather like red-blue with a focus around Kuro early play into a Triform deck. Basically, it was Triform is actually kind of misleading because the star of the deck was the 3-2 Kuro early play and not Triform, but like Triform was the finish that you were able to play with Kuro. Basically, the only real finish you were able to play with Kuro. But the issue with that deck was that Kuro needed a lot of pieces at level 2 to like come together. You needed the gate, you needed the 0-0 to clock, and you needed multiple copies of the Kuro. But then Triform needed a lot of pieces at level 3, and there was just not enough time for Ilya to actually grab its pieces in the old deck unless you like sacked. Which is where there was always a conflict between do I go for the Kuro plan, do I go for the Triform plan? Because usually going for one meant that you somewhat cripple the other, which is obviously not a very good thing. So what happened with Dry, I think, is that the Kuro early play deck split, or Kuro early play like combo split off into its own deck focused around it, which is why it's called like Kuro Sustain. And Triform also split off into its own deck, which is more of a blue-green deck. Yeah, it's also like playing 4 brainstorms, like most Ilya decks will, just because Ilya doesn't have a lot of stock out and a lot of selection and a lot of anything, so you just need the brainstorms. 5 beaters, which is somewhat standard, I think, for Ilya. Many people will only run 4, or some will even only run 3, but like Ilya has a lot of access to like good beaters from runners to level 1 4Ks on your opponent's turn. That I think it's like usually a very defensible choice to just run beaters. And for the early play condition, and then I'm running 2 of the Gilgamesh. Actually, forgot what a second. It bonds to the event. Oh, and when it side attacks, it gives a character 1/5. That's something you'll basically never use. It also runs like the same level 1 core of the Akatsuki and the 1/0 combo with the split 2k1. Basically, it just help you build stock and help you not like lose all your cards in hand. And then at level 2, you just try to go for the Kuro combo. And you're playing, in addition to like the Kuro combo, which is -2 soul for the opponent, you're also playing a lot of heroes and just assists to like help your field sustain. Okay, and so now why I think Kuro combo has fallen off and isn't very good right now, and this also kind of applies to Kotori from Rewrite. You want these -2 soul early plays. Well, first of all, they need to stick around, so you're obviously gonna get extremely crushed by anti-change counters. So you often need to side attack. Like that's the first thing. The second thing is that even if like best case scenario, like get the -2 soul, your opponent can't kill your Kuro. You get to do the combo another turn. Like your opponent can't kill the Kuro. You draw another gate. You get to do the combo another turn. What actually happens is that your opponent crashed into Kuro, and now you're playing a Global Soul Comics. This basically means that you're swinging for 4, which is often at that stage of the game is like swinging for 10 or so. It's like swinging for too much to the point where you're actually just not dealing any damage. So yes, you're blocking your opponent from dealing a lot of damage to you because you're just -2 souling on 2 lanes. But you're actually not really dealing damage to the opponent either. So the deck just has a real struggle of actually like getting to the point where it can close out the game. Not even talking about that this deck doesn't really have access to any real finishers. It just actually struggles to even get to the point where a finisher could close out the game at times. But the -2 soul effect is obviously still very powerful, and if the opponent like wasn't able to compress well, then swinging for 3 and swinging for sometimes even 4 just goes through, and then they'll just be sad because the damage equity when they deal 2 less damage per lane is just so much higher for you that you'll just basically drown them in a damage advantage. Yeah, and one other thing these cards are obviously weak to is removal in the form of anything that removes characters in field or like field swaps them, which are 2 effects that this set actually has, surprisingly. Or like any bounce triggers are a big one, and bounce events are a big one. Well, bounce events are actually only just to Love Room and Chain Chronicle, but yeah, bounce triggers are somewhat common. Not that common, but they are here and there, and like those really make you sad because the come into play effect of the Kuro isn't that great. So when you don't get the -2 soul off of her, it's just not a high value proposition. And it's essentially like the last card in the deck is the Gilgamesh event, which basically says that you give a character of yours it can't front attack, and the next turn the opponent's character opposing it can't front attack. And what this does, it kind of allows you to do 2 turns of Kuro combo without actually doing 2 turns of Kuro combo. Because it's just like, if the opponent just crashed into your Kuro, then there's an empty lane. You can put this on this empty lane and just still deny the opponent that one basically attack without actually like over swinging that much. So this basically feeds into allowing you to do multiple turns of Kuro combo without actually like getting the drawback of playing a global soul climax at level 2 to level 3 while the opponent has empty lanes. Yeah. And then real quick about Ilya coin flip. Because every set needs to have its coin flip deck now. Because this is something people might not know, probably they do, but like there's a vanilla coin flip card from the second set, I think. Yeah, it has to be second set. It doesn't have magic trade, but you can just like salvage it with the brainstorm and then actually, yeah, you can salvage it with the brainstorm because the brainstorm is not trade reliant, but you kind of have to be careful with the oversize because the oversize is only like 4K level 1 if you don't have like any other traits in field other than magic and hungry. This can obviously be the runner instead, just so you so you don't like, so it's not like a number between the coin flip and the oversize. But the issue with playing the runner is that the runner hits off of magic trade, and for example the Angelica doesn't have magic trade, so it's kind of like a trade-off between whether you want to like have these two on the field at the same time, or whether you want to risk like hitting one of the Mimi or the Angelica of your runner. Both are kind of suboptimal, but these are like the choices you have, kind of. You can also run a random 4K, but yeah, level 1 is just very sparse. And here you can see one of the real issues with the Mew combo, because we're running a very sparse level 1 because we want to maximize the coin flips. You actually need to give another character the ability to on reverse salvage. So you need to have a second somewhat big character on the field. This actually makes it, like in this deck it's actually pretty hard. Unless your opponent still is straggling zeros around, just because you're not running you're actually running no beaters except for the climax combo itself. And this is something where you can actually like see the real weaknesses of this kind of card. But it's basically your best option since this deck needs to play 8 crit triggers, and it's like a combo that somewhat replaces itself. So you'll just play it and hope that you find something to reverse. And then you just have a bond to 3 Ilya top check, so that you don't run out of cards that fast if you miss your coin flips. Yeah. And then you're just running a whole bunch of like cards that can be useful at level 2 and 3. You're running like interchange counters, you're running refreshes, you're running the assist that bonds to the healer, you're running the interchange bomb, and you're running everything at inflated counts. Because the deck has shit selection, and what selection it has from the brainstorm, it usually just needs to spend on like grabbing playables, like grabbing zeros and grabbing ones. So you're running inflated counts of all of these so that you can actually see them if you want to see them. And the reason why you're doing all this is basically to enable the Angelica, which is like the Gilgamesh from Fate. The Gilgamesh burns on reverse, this burns on attack. With the climax combo, you mill 2 cards and you burn 1 times the amount of soul triggers. So if you trigger 2, if you mill 2 climaxes, you just burn 1, 1, 1, 1. And if you do like Angelica and set up the top 6 with Ilya, set up 2 climaxes with the Ilya, which is not that unlikely since you're top checking 6. Then you just actually burn 4, like burn 4 times 1. And then if you have a second Angelica out, then it's almost like Kaleidoscope, except you don't need to like keep 4 climaxes in your hand. So yeah, that's a fun thing you can do. I wouldn't recommend either the Angelica build or a Kuro build. I think those have real weaknesses. Like with the Kuro, the whole issue, Kuro is just ill positioned in the meta right now in general. And Angelica, obviously, like the shell behind this is sketchy and inconsistent to say the least. But this is like one kind of way you can try to build and maximize around this top 3 combo if that's what you desire because you want to have fun. Which is also why I built the deck. Yeah, this video went way too long already. So I'll just like end it here. And see you guys next week. Comment whatever you want in the comments below. Like, I'll try to answer all the questions you have since I play Ilya a lot, and I've probably tried most of the decks available. Yeah.